Florida Democrats admit their policies don't connect with voters. So in Florida, podcast listeners, in Florida, Democrats are losing in every way imaginable. And they are finally openly admitting, Democrats are in Florida, that their policies aren't even connecting with voters. And that's why voters are either changing their party affiliation or just questioning the entire Democrat policies to begin with. So Democrat officials are now openly admitting that Democrats are not connecting with voters in Florida. As Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Republican, continues to shine, Democrats are beginning to panic. But the Pasco County Democrat Party head is skeptical that Florida Democrats can capitalize on it to topple DeSantis next November in 2022. Quote, "My concern is DeSantis is going to win again simply because people know his name and we haven't been able to connect with how his policies and executive orders impact them," Smith said. "And we are a little behind in getting out and meeting the voters." Smith's angst, echoed by local Democrat officials throughout Florida, highlights the grim struggle facing the party, which is trying to rebound from its 2020 losses while developing an effective message against DeSantis ahead of his possible presidential run. This comes as Republicans are on their way to having more registered voters in Florida than Democrats. It's the first time in modern political history Republicans will have more registered voters than Democrats in the state of Florida. Just a few short years ago, it was in the hundreds of thousands, the advantage that the Democrats had. Democrats had 23,055 more registered voters in Florida in the Sunshine State at the end of August, so you can see how it's dwindling. That was down from 700,000 voter advantage with Barack Obama when he won in 2008. So in 2008, the Democrats in Florida had a 700,000 vote advantage. I mean, Republicans would still from time to time, of course, win Florida because many of those Democrats were de facto Republicans and others just felt like the Democrat Party was leaving them and maybe they stayed home. But now that advantage is only down to 23,000 Democrats who have an advantage in Florida. So you see, Florida is not just trending Republican, it's a red state. Going to be one of the reddest states, I have no doubt, for a whole variety of reasons. But it's no doubt that DeSantis is partially responsible for it because of his intellect, of his ability to actually articulate the policies that are conservative policies, which are based on freedom of the individual. Quote, "Without a full frontal, professional, and accountable partisan effort to turn it around sometime before the end of this year, there will be more Republicans registered in Florida than Democrats. That's never happened before," longtime Florida Democrat operative Steve Schale told Politico. And so in Pinellas County, which is Clearwater, Florida, that's the area where Pinellas County is, the Pinellas County Republicans, as of just a couple of days ago, they're only 1,564 voter registrations away from flipping Pinellas County to Republican. So only 1,600 voter registration difference between Republicans and Democrats in Pinellas County. And it's trending and trending and trending where not only do you have the influx of people moving to Florida because it's the free state, but you have many of the existing old line Democrats who said they're never going to change their voter registration, even though they may vote Republican from time to time, are now actually doing what? They're disgusted with the Democrat Party. They are changing their voting registration. Here's Scott Pressler in Clearwater, Florida, talking about that very issue. He is a very famous activist in the Republican Party, and we have a clip from him in Pinellas County, Florida, and here it is.
Hey everybody, this is Scott Pressler. We are here in Clearwater in Pinellas County, and I have a message for the Democrats and anyone trying to California our Florida. Well, we are organized, we are registering voters, we are going to flip Pinellas County from blue to red.
Yeah, so that's Scott Pressler. He's a real, cheerleader, if you will, of the Republican Party. He just travels around the country, and he does all kinds of things. I mean, he was in Baltimore City cleaning up trash in Baltimore City when President Trump tweeted out that Baltimore City is a place where there's trash all over the streets. Scott Pressler mobilized people, went there and cleaned up trash in the streets when the citizens of Baltimore could have easily done it themselves, but instead would rather just throw trash on the streets. Democrats, right? Democrats, that's what they do. But remember, Democrats are pro-environment. Oh, yeah, sure they are. Look at any major city in America. Oh, yeah, their environment is real nice. And then you have Scott Pressler now in Florida, in Pinellas County, Florida, which is the Clearwater, Florida area. And he's there just celebrating the fact that the Republican Party isn't just a buzz, it is thriving and growing. This is happening, podcast listeners, all across the country. Yes, we have demographic shifts. Yes, we have people moving from Rust Belt states to places like the South and Southeast. Yes, we all know that. But it doesn't matter. All of those Rust Belt states, you still have the core Republican Party and many others who are Democrats and independents they have big question marks above their heads, which are, why am I voting with these people? They're crazy. They're unhinged. And so President Trump, just to show you how unhinged the Democrats are, President Trump keeps teasing Chucky Schumer about how AOC is going to challenge him. So one of the reasons why, podcast listeners, Chucky Schumer is so far left, even though there are many of us that believe that Chuck Schumer is probably a classic liberal, but he's been forced, or he has decided to voluntarily move himself to the far left because he's terrified that AOC is going to challenge him for United States Senate, in which case she may very well take him out. So in the Hill newspaper, former President Trump teased Senate Majority Leader Charles Chucky Schumer, Democrat of New York, about occasional challenge from progressive representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat in New York, suggesting that she might run for Schumer's seat. I think she is, by the way. The progressives gain far more power with the legislation being currently talked about by failing than it does passes, Trump said in a statement issued through his Save America PAC on Friday. Quote, it makes them a true powerhouse. Next up, AOC running against Chucky Schumer for his U.S. Senate seat, he continued. AOC, one of the central figures of the progressive wing of the Democrat Party, has been speculated to run for Schumer's seat in 2022. The New York Congresswoman has not explicitly ruled out challenging Schumer. However, in a CNN interview aired in August, she said that she can't operate the way she does while trying to aspire to other goals. Quote, I know there's a lot of people who do not believe that, but I can't operate the way I can operate and do the things that I do in politics while trying to be aspiring to other things and calculating to other things, AOC said. I'm not really sure what that means. But the point Trump's making is that the progressives actually gain more power when they can go home and say, you see, we wanted a $4 trillion bill, but they only passed, $1.5 trillion of spending. And that empowers AOC when she goes back to New York City to say, the only reason we failed is because Chuck Schumer is the head of the Senate, and that's why you need to elect me to beat Chuck Schumer. So there's Donald Trump, of course, ribbing Chuck Schumer over this and saying, hey, Chuck, you got this woman out there and she's going to come after you. And so you might want to move even further and further left. And what does that do, podcast listeners? As they move further and further left, the Democrats, because they have to, because they're being challenged by their left flank, by the AOC and the squad, it makes more people who are in their party, who are rank and file people, switch registration, like in Florida and in other states. People are questioning the Democrat Party's policies, and they're saying, well, they don't work. They're not working in the Rust Belt. They're not working in the major cities. And so the Democrats are really in a corner now because they're being squeezed by the progressives on the one side and by the Republicans on the other, who are basically saying, look, you're all the same. This has kind of been my argument for a long time, is that I really don't think there are any moderate Democrats. Look, when someone says to me, they say, I'm a Democrat. And I say, okay. And we start a conversation, a civil conversation. And the person goes down the road, they're like, let's just say they're anti-Trump. I'm a Democrat. I hate Donald Trump. Okay, yeah, whatever. All right, put that aside. Let's now talk about actual policies. All right, let's take the personalities out for a minute. Let's talk about policies. Do you support this Build Back Better plan that's $4 trillion at least? Do you support that? And you know what they always say? Oh, yeah, well, we need to get the economy going. Yeah, we need that spending. And then you go down the list. Do you know what's in the bill? And you start talking to them about that. They don't know what's in the bill. These people don't even understand what that kind of spending will do to our economy and how it will be necessary to weaponize different parts of the government in order to pay for it, which we're going to get to, podcast listeners. That's part of this podcast, without question. So the good news is, conservatives, the good news is for us, and the bad news is for the Democrats, is that when you have super articulate and principled politicians like the governor of Florida, Governor DeSantis, and they're able to truly articulate conservative values and principles of freedom, personal freedom, in every single time it undermines the Democrat Party because they can't equal that with their policies. They cannot.